I finally picked up a pistol that I've wanted for quite some time, but I could never really bring myself to do it, the SIG M17. I plan to make this my concealed carry gun, and so it's a full-size gun, but I've just always kind of gravitated more to the larger pistols for whatever reason. Maybe it just feels better in my hand, or I like the capacity, or that's just kind of what I know. So I'm gonna use it, and I've concealed carried with it for maybe just like a couple of days, and it's actually been quite comfortable. So for the Glock 17 that I've been using, I shot it a lot, and so now I'm going to kind of, let it rest for a little bit, use the SIG instead, and, I wouldn't say retire the Glock 17, but, just put it away for now. And so I've been really liking the SIG a lot, so I'll just kind of share, as I mentioned already, kind of my observations. Now, because I've only shot 300 rounds to it, please don't take this video as a review. It's definitely not. It is far too soon to do anything like that. But as an overview of this gun, as I kind of mentioned, it's a full-size pistol. It's made by SIG. And so I think a lot of people know this gun. It's, very popular because the military uses it in some branches. I think it's the Army. But they also have a civilian version, which is what you see here on the screen. And so that was kind of my main attraction to it. I think it looks sexy as hell. I think it's a great two-tone color, but more practically too, I like the fact that it's a 17-round striker-fired gun, full size. That's something that I'm very used to and that I always kind of grew up shooting when it came to handguns, so it was very familiar to me. I picked up this gun on Gunbroker, and so it came with one 17-round magazine and three 21-round magazines. Usually it comes with two, but I got lucky. I just want to make it known I got three instead, which is kind of nice. And the magazines, they feed very well, they're very reliable, and I find them to be quite easy to load all 21 rounds. When I've been carrying with this gun, I'll use the 17-round magazine instead, just because it prints a little less than a 21-round magazine. The M17 also comes with night sights, which I like, but I haven't really needed to use them. And then it also comes with a manual safety in this option. I can go either way. I know some people like them on guns, on striker-fired guns, and some people don't. I don't really care either way. I think originally I did want the no manual safety just because I think that with the manual safety, it kind of gets away a little bit, gets in the way of the slide stop. It doesn't hinder your ability to use the slide stop, but it is something I noticed I probably would have placed it elsewhere. Now, in terms of what's unique about the gun, I did mention already that the Army uses this M17, not this specific version. I think they have something that's, slightly different in terms of color and maybe some other stuff in the controls. But what's unique about this gun and, why did I pick it up? Honestly, my Glock would have done just fine. I mostly just wanted to refresh. I guess you could say every now and then, you get the itch for another gun. And actually this was a perfect example of that. Is there a practical upgrade for me to get this gun over the Glock 17? No, I wouldn't really say so. But I've wanted this one for a while. I finally did it, and I've been loving it so far. So as a full-size gun, these are more intended for outside the waistband or duty kind of carry instead. So this isn't usually the kind of gun you would think of when, it's not the go-to size you would go for a gun when it comes to concealed carry, but it's definitely doable. So I'm 5'8", 180 pounds, and I found that it conceals quite well as long as you just play with the right holster and the right positioning of your of that holster on your body. And I carry an appendix, and I found it to be quite comfortable. I think I did need to kind of adjust where I was wearing the holster before so it doesn't pinch, but I think I found something that works for me. So it's definitely doable to conceal carry this pistol. Again, it's probably not what people would think of when they consider concealed carry guns. They would think of something smaller, but it is absolutely doable. So usually when I do these kind of gun reviews, I will have sections with what I like and what I don't like, and then would I recommend it. As I mentioned, for only 300 rounds, it is far too soon to do that. So I'll just share what I've observed of, some initial impressions or opinions. We've already talked about the aesthetics. I think it's a sexy gun. I think it looks great with the two-tone and just the overall shape and profile. All that kind of good gun nerd kind of stuff. I think it's just a sexy gun. Looks almost like a little awkward with the top half, the slide being really big and the grip is less so. I don't know, maybe it's just a me thing. But that kind of makes it look really good. I think it's just a really good looking gun too. But beyond that, let's also talk about the actual practicality and the ergonomics. I really do like this grip. I find it to be a bit more fleshed out and more full than, let's say, my Glock 17, which feels a little slimmer. And somehow the grip angle of this M17 just feels to contours and works better with my hands. So even though it may not have the, the grippiest texture, the roughest texture, the most tactile, I find that the angle of the grip on the M17 works very well for me. People will talk about the bore axis on the M17 being a little bit, different from what they're used to. And sure, I think, if that's not what you like, it's a valid complaint. Personally, for me, I don't really care. I think between, all the different pistols I've shot, they're all different in their own ways, and I have to adjust slightly with my sights for each of them. And so this is just another thing to practice with and is by no means a hindrance. Again, every gun is different. This just happens to be one of its quirks, and I don't think it's a showstopper by any means. One thing I do like especially about this gun too is the trigger. For a striker fired gun, I would say it's quite crisp, but it's nothing like a 1911's trigger. You definitely still have that defined wall and a little bit of take up, but coming back to the Glock again, because really that's the only other frame of reference that I have for this kind of gun, striker fired full-size gun. I find that the SIG has a much crisper take up and a much crisper trigger break than something like the Glock's trigger, which I find to be much more sluggish. I think this does help me shoot a little better, but ultimately I think that comes down to more practice. And as long as you're putting in those hours, you can make either type of trigger, either kind of gun work. But it's just an observation that I've made, having shot and come so much from my Glock 17, now shooting the SIG, I do notice that difference, and I do think it helps me with my groups. And another thing I like too is capacity. It comes standard with a 17 round magazine, which granted the Glock 17 did have that as well, but also I have 21 round magazines for this M17 too, which I like as well. So capacity is definitely not something that I have to worry about when it comes to this gun. And going off of the magazine capacity, I find that the magazines themselves are very easy. They feel very sleek, like the metal or the finish, there's something about it feels very sleek. And so they're very easy to insert into the pistol, and then also feeding rounds into the magazine, loading my 9mm rounds, I find is also pretty effortless. So for example, when I was going for my Glock 17, I know I keep coming back to that. I would use a lot of Magpul PMags, during range sessions. Now I'd find that even with the 17 rounds and I got to the 16th or 17th round, I would find it quite difficult to, get that last round in the magazine. Whereas if I do that for the 17 or the 21 round mags for the SIG, I've noticed it's pretty effortless and it always feeds very well. Is this really a big deal in the grand scheme of things? No, I don't think so, because between both those Magpul Glock mags and the SIG mags, they always fed very well. But it's just a nice thing that I kind of noticed as well. On the topics of mags and ammunition, 9mm is more controllable and cheaper too. Definitely cheaper than 45 ACP. The last pistol that I picked up, which is why I'm mentioning 45, was that TSUS 1911, which I still love and shoot. It's had about 1,500 rounds. But 9mm I find is a more controllable round and is a lot cheaper, and so it's going to help me be able to shoot and therefore practice with the M17 more. Now that by no means I'm done with the TSUS, the 1911. I love 45, and it just feels like such a man's kind of gun, But when it comes to concealed carry right now, I'm going to stick with the M17 because of capacity, and I'm just more familiar with that type of gun versus like a 1911. And the last cool thing that I've observed so far from shooting this gun, it comes back to concealment. As I mentioned before, I'm concealed carrying this pistol, and a full-size pistol generally isn't what people would think about when they're talking about a concealed carry gun. But I find that it's concealed very well so far. I used to think that, technically this is a little bit bigger than my Glock 17, so instead of me going down in size, I chose to go up, which on paper would actually make this gun harder to conceal than my Glock. But I just ultimately ended up playing around with the position of the holster on my body for appendix carry, and I think I found something that worked quite well. I think maybe before I was too concerned that, full size wouldn't really work. Not the biggest dude out there, so it would be harder for me. But all I did was play around with my holster position and experimented what worked for me, and I found I've had really no issues concealed carrying this pistol in terms of printing. So those are some cool things that I've noticed so far shooting the SIG, and again, this is basically just from one range day of 300 rounds, although I have shot this gun a couple of times at indoor ranges, just like throughout the years. But there's some things that I noticed too, which, it's way too soon to say that I don't like, but there are just some observations I've noticed of things that, I have to pay attention to. With that manual safety to start off, you know, it never inadvertently comes on and off, but I think just where it's positioned relative to the slide stop, it can sometimes be a little bit harder than I would like to actually activate the slide stop. I think the slide stop too, as a a piece on the gun, is maybe a little bit smaller than I'd like, but this hasn't been something that's actually prevented me from shooting as well as I can when I'm actually at the range. It's just something that I've noticed that, okay, yeah, maybe my thumb doesn't engage the slide stop as much as I want because I'm afraid I'll actually push up on the safety instead. So we have the SIG here, and so what I mean is you can kind of see, it's a little awkward to do this angle for me. You can kind of see where the safety is here. And so because the slide stop is so much smaller, it sometimes can be a little difficult to hit the slide stop as well as you'd like. But it's ultimately not that big of a deal. Again, I think it's really just something that you can get over. Another thing I've noticed, you may have just observed that yourself, but I've noticed that the spring on the recoil spring on the M17 is pretty squeaky. This isn't a bad thing, and I've lubricated the gun, and I've heard it a lot actually on other people's reviews of the M17 when they work the action. The spring is always very squeaky. It's not a bad thing, it's just something I've noticed. Yeah, take from that what you will, but it's there. I don't know about you, but now that I've heard it, I can never unhear it. So, whatever. And so the last thing I've noticed too on the SIG is just on the loaded chamber indicator. Probably would have placed that a little bit to the side like on the Glock where the extractor, has like a extra hump machined into it. I probably would have put it there instead of just below the rear sight. I have noticed that when I am shooting, when the gun's loaded, it sticks out just a little bit into your sight picture. Now, I know that's the whole point because you want to know if your gun's loaded, and that's like a foolproof way to know. But I personally would have just put this on the, the side of the extractor, like on the Glock 17 instead, as opposed to having it directly in your sight picture. Again, not the biggest deal. I'm not shifting my aim and it's not kind of throwing me off, but I have noticed it a little bit, and I probably would have just, made it in a different area. Is it gonna stop me from enjoying the gun and shooting it? And is it gonna make me lose gunfights because of that loaded chamber indicator? Nah, not at all. And one more thing I'll say too about this gun, I don't, take from this what you will. It feels a lot more Tupperware-y than the Glock 17. Yeah, it's a polymer pistol as well with the slide isn't, but the frame is. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I've just noticed it feels a lot more Tupperware-y on the bottom. It's not a knock on build quality or craftsmanship or anything. I actually like this gun more than my Glock 17 for now. But yeah, I don't know. Just saying, just throwing it out there. Take from it what you will. So that'll do it for this video. Just wanted to make an excuse to talk about the SIG M17. I had wanted it for maybe 2 years, 1.5 or 2 years or something. I guess I could never really justify it because I have the Glock 17, which for my purposes and functionally, these are the same guns, really. And then I have the 1911 too, so I already have like a decent amount of pistols. You can never have enough, but I have a decent amount of pistols for, my use case. But I finally did it. I got the M17 as kind of a birthday present to myself, and I've been loving it. So this is me trying to justify my purchase to you guys, but it's been a great gun. I wouldn't say there's anything particularly special functionally about this gun versus, as I keep mentioning, the 17, Glock 17, or even the Glock 19. I know full size versus compact. But my point of me saying this is if you feel as though that the SIG M17 is somehow so much more special than a Glock 17, because I keep mentioning, the differences in this video, don't take that away. I think overall this is a bit more of an aesthetic and, kind of an emotional purchase for me. This gun does everything my Glock 17 does and vice versa. So thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I'll keep shooting this gun more. I'm probably going to switch to this more than, some of my other guns just because I have it now. And as a concealed carry pistol, I do want to get even more familiar with it. So I'll keep updating you guys on it and taking you along on my shooting journey, shooting life with the SIG M17. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll catch you guys in the next one.